without further ado, I'd like to ask Aura to introduce the guests for tonight's program.
Okay, thanks, Leonard. So International Holocaust Remembrance Day was Thursday, January 27th. And therefore, we have the two ladies as our guest speakers. Marnie, Bondar, and Dahlia Libin are both volunteers, co-chairs of the Calgary Jewish Federation's Holocaust and Human Rights Education and Commemoration Department. They will outline what Calgarians have in store this year for Holocaust education. I'll just give a brief bio, a joint bio on them. So Dahlia Libin and Marnie Bondar are both granddaughters of 4 Holocaust survivors and have been dedicated volunteers for Calgary Jewish Federation for many years. They have learned about the suffering and brutal, tragic loss of essentially their entire families in the Shoah. Their scope of experience include programs such as the Door-to-Door, Second Voices Project, and the annual Holocaust Education Symposium to commemorations including Yom HaShoah, Kristallnacht, and International Holocaust Remembrance Day. They remain passionate about ensuring that the horrors experienced during the Shoah are understood, remembered, and learned from today and for generations to come. Together, Dahlia and Marnie will be overseeing this department to ensure continued programming and commemorations remain an important part of our community's activities. So after this, I think I'll let them say what they want to say for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very nice, long introduction. I'm Marnie, everyone. I think I know almost every single person here this evening. And so that's always a pleasure and a joy. And I actually think most people know or knew my bubby Frida, who forms very much, Frida Plusser forms very much the backbone for what I do. And so 2 years ago, when another one of my favorite people, Alana Krieger Lapita, stepped down as chair of the Holocaust and Human Rights Education and Commemoration Department, I really wanted to step up and fill that void. And so it was a true honor and a privilege when I met my kindred spirit in Dahlia Libin, who is also the granddaughter of 4 Holocaust survivors. And so from the start, it's been our true joy, an honor, but also a responsibility to ensure that all the regular Holocaust programming that Calgary Jewish Federation has been doing for many years continues on. And we've been able to do that throughout COVID. But we also wanted to do something a little bit different. And so tonight, what we thought we would do with you is we wanted to share a little bit with you about a project that we've been working on that has been 2 years in the making. And we actually have a few celebrities with us this evening. Both Morris and Ann Danziger are featured in the exhibit that you're about to hear about. And so if I have the ability to share my screen, Rabbi Leonard, can I share my screen? Awesome. Dahlia, take it away. Do you want me to show the website first or the book? What would you like, Dahlia?
Well, why don't we show the trailer to start? Do you want to do that? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So this is, so like Marnie said, we've been working on this project for the last 2 years. It is a photography exhibit that is about honoring and educating Calgary and beyond about our local Calgary connected Holocaust survivors. And so it's a 3-part project. We have the photography exhibit that we'll talk about a little bit. There's a book that accompanies it and a short film. But I thought maybe we would just start with the trailer of the film. It's just a couple minutes. And then we can fill you in on what's happening with this exhibit and where we're at. So
It's pretty powerful, everybody. So that's your warning for the trailer. Okay, here it is. Turn your volume up.
Sorry, I just want to see if we can get sound here.
We don't have sound?
No sound.
Okay.
I think it's
Just a minute.
starting. I think if you wait a sec, we might hear it. No.
Can you hear anything?
Oh, now it
Sometimes when I hear people
There we
talking
go.
about
Thank
the
you.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, put full volume like that. We can hear it.
Okay.
Holocaust, and then they say, they talk about it and they say that it's all about tolerance. You know, they put it in the same boat as tolerance, as if you're tolerant, it's got nothing to do with tolerance. That message is a little bit off because the Holocaust was just totally different than that.
My whole family was gone. My mother and I were the only two survivors. I lost my father, my brother, my grandparents, all my aunts, my uncles, everybody. So we walked to West Germany. It took us 2 years. We went from Ukraine to West Germany. We walked. It's not because I'm a Holocaust survivor. I'm their voice. Nobody speaks up for them. When we got there, nobody. There was nobody. There was extended family of about 300 people. They were all gone. My grandfathers, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, everybody.
He told my dad to go this way and told me to go that way. I didn't see him again.
And he shouted to my father, "Raus, raus, schnell, go quickly." And he did not go quickly, so he shot them about 5 meters away from me. So this picture is always in my head, and I see my grandfather bleeding all around.
If you see on the map little rivers, rivers of blood. We saw the ground moving.
And my grandfather was carrying me, and my grandmother came and lifted me out of his arms. And it's a good thing she did, because he went straight into the gas chamber.
So that is the essence of our project. We are really trying to document some of the stories, experiences, bios of Holocaust survivors that are connected to Calgary. And, we are fortunate to have a number of living survivors in our city that participated, like Anne and Morris, but we wanted to make sure that we were, equally honoring those who have passed away. All of my grandparents, all of Marnie's grandparents. And so, Marnie, do you want to talk about how we did that?
So we had to figure out how we were going to do this project during COVID. And so we spent our time, first of all, meeting with our living survivors in backyards, in garages, at the JCC, trying to keep everybody as safe as possible in order to take their photos. We also took the time to learn more about our survivors. And we wanted to do something a little bit maybe different than has been done before, which is not just tell the story of what happened to our survivors between 1933 and 1945, but to also really share the essence of who these people are and what they went on to do with their lives. All of our survivors that are in the exhibit have some sort of connection to the city of Calgary. And so a lot of the names and faces will be very familiar to you. So they might not have always lived in Calgary the whole time. So for example, does everyone remember Cantor Morris Lang?
Yeah.
Cantor Morris Lang is in the exhibit because he spent years and years here and was a big part of our Calgary community. So we thought we would show you a sneak peek. Nobody else has actually seen this. If you look in my hands right here, we have the book that just came out, that was published, that Dahlia referred to. So this is our book that's here to tell. All of our living Holocaust survivors that are featured in the exhibit will be getting one of these for free. And people will be able to see the exhibit at the Glenbow Museum. We're going to be there from May 27th to July 3rd. Now, for anyone who heard that the Glenbow Museum is undergoing renovations, you're right. So what the Glenbow's done is they have created a satellite location for the next 3 years. And that's going to be at the Edison building. So it's right across the street from the Palliser Hotel. So that's where we're going to be. And we're also thrilled to report we recently just received a huge donation from Nabrith Lodge in Calgary. We're going to be able to be busing in students, junior high and high school students from all over Calgary to come and see the exhibit. So without further ado, this is my version of the book. So you can see, that's what you're seeing on my screen right now. You're seeing the book. So what I thought, since we have some celebrities in the audience today, I thought you might want to see their images. Hold on. I'm just scrolling up. There we go. So I think you all know this beautiful lady, Anne Danziger.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and there we've got Morris. And so we were very intentional with how we photographed the survivors. We really wanted to, there's a lot of symbolism in this whole project, but we really wanted to capture the faces of lives lived, survivors who went through what they did, but yet found the strength to pick themselves up, continue to live fully, prosperously, being able to find happiness and joy in their lives. There's so much to learn from the survivors, not just about the historical information, which is definitely important, but about the resilience. And so we were very intentional to have a lot of the focus being on the eyes. The eyes are very, they're in focus. And as the camera moves away from the faces, things become a little bit more blurred. And so, yeah, so we really just wanted to capture that. Marnie, do you want to show what we did with the other photos?
Yeah, so one of the challenges we had, Dahlia, you want to talk about our challenge and what we did?
So again, what I was saying before, our big challenge of how do we honor all survivors, whether they're living or deceased. It's a big challenge. And so what we came up with was this type of idea. So we put a request out to the community that for anyone whose relative, loved one, parent, grandparent was a survivor and they wanted them to be in this exhibit, to submit photos. Once we received the photos, we realized we really had a challenge because some photos were in great quality, others were not. Others were really tiny photos. Some of these survivors passed away decades ago. And so the quality of the photography of their latest picture was of very, very poor quality. And so we had to figure out how can we balance the beauty of the professional portraits of the living survivor with the vintage quality of some of these photos. So we ended up having a photographer come and we were able to crop images. So some of these pictures that you're seeing may have been just a few inches in size. So we were able to blow them up to about a 6x8. And then we invited descendants to come to photo shoots to hold their family's photos. And so in the photo, which this is a good one, because this is Morris holding his stepfather's or I guess you would call him your father, Morris. I'm not sure. Father's father.
Yes.
Yeah, step. So he's holding his photo, and we really wanted the focus, the crispness, now to be on the hands, because this is a legacy piece. And there's Morris's mother, and so here you see the photo. Morris's hands are in focus, as well as the photo of his mother. But again, some of the, and this actually is quite a decent quality. Some were quite blurred. So there's a lot of symbolism with that as well. Marnie, do you want to explain what we asked descendants to wear? And
so in addition to having the children and grandchildren of our Holocaust survivors come and use their hands in the photo exhibit, we even took it a step further and we asked them to wear the jewelry or anything that was personal that related back to the Holocaust survivor. And so we have some really powerful images. We have one descendant who's wearing his Zeta's talus, for example. We have another one, I think you saw it, it passed, we did a playing card that was meaningful to the family. So there are layers upon layers of meaning. And so to give you an example, I'm gonna just do my bubby because that's just an easy one for me. We have 161 people in this exhibit. It's a lot of people, which is incredible. So this, for example, is a picture of my bubby Frida, and she's being held in my daughter Chloe's hands. And each photograph at the exhibit is accompanied by a small bio. And the bio explains what happened to the person during the Holocaust. And then another paragraph explains what happened to the person after the war. And so if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'm going to share this one with you. This is my bubby Frida's entry. Frida Plusser, born April 15th, 1922 in Kalisz, Poland, died January 11th, 2020, Calgary, Canada. She promised to choose life and bear witness. The youngest of 6 siblings, Frida was vacationing with her mother when war broke out in 1939. Refused travel permits, they survived as refugees until they were confined to the Gustinin ghetto, where they were reunited with some family. On the night before the ghetto was liquidated, fearing the worst, Frida's father recited the Kaddish, a Jewish prayer said for the deceased. At the urging of her eldest sister, Frida fled to a nearby forest. She later found her eldest brother in the Plonsk ghetto, where she married his best friend, Chaim. In December 1942, all 3 were transported to Auschwitz in sealed cattle cars. Given only 1 shoe upon arrival, Frida was forced to move the corpses of deceased prisoners. The first time she performed the gruesome task, she fainted. Later, she tried on the shoes of the deceased. A good pair sometimes made the difference between life and death. Forced to work in the Canada warehouses, Frida combed through confiscated belongings of doomed prisoners to find valuables for the Nazis. The food she found in pockets kept her alive. Though Frida considered suicide by grabbing the death camp's electrified fence, she kept the promise she had made to her mother and sister that she would bear witness. After the war, Frida and Chaim reunited in a displaced persons camp in Italy. They began a family and spent 10 years in Israel before Frida insisted that they move to Canada, the land of plenty she had dreamt of during her darkest hours. They eventually settled in Calgary. When Frida learned that Holocaust deniers were spreading lies, she began sharing her testimony, educating thousands of students. Her story continues to guide and fortify her sons, Sam and Ron, 5 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, and all whose lives she touched.
Beautiful. I think we know one of those grandchildren, Yeshua.
Exactly. So that's just one little snippet of what will be in the exhibit. We've been incredibly fortunate. This exhibit, Dahlia, do you want to do the background photos?
Sure. So we, throughout the process, we actually, this wasn't planned actually from day one, but after our first photo shoot, we realized there were just so many precious moments that were happening. We were having some survivors start to open up and talk and share bits of their stories. We weren't expecting that. Also, just to see the process, this was all done during COVID, as well as once we started to really feel and see the enthusiasm almost from the descendants who were coming to the photo shoots. Just really, it was very meaningful for them to hold the photos. We thought we should really capture this. So we ended up hiring a photographer, he's actually volunteer. He volunteered to come and just photograph the background shots of what was happening, as well as we hired a videographer, and that you saw the trailer. So just here you can see kind of what we were up against. We've got, photo shoots, like Marnie said, in garages, in backyards, really trying to keep it COVID safe. And, the masks on, keeping everyone distant. So here you've got some descendants who came, and just the overall, we did get a few descendants who actually expressed how emotionally difficult they found participating in this, that, the kind of intergenerational trauma that is very real and really came to the forefront for them. They found it incredibly difficult to really dive into their parents' stories. And then for many descendant grandchildren, just a lot of pride, very proud to come and hold their photos and wanting to share. Grandchildren are really proud of their grandparents. And that was, Marnie and I can definitely speak to that. This is why we are doing what we do. It's a labor of love, but we're not unique in that. A lot of the grandchildren that started to come out, some of them had never really scratched the surface of their grandparents' stories. Some of their grandparents never talked about their stories. And so this was a kind of an experience on many levels. But it was very heartening to see the pride. So that's it. And just to, the idea that we can provide free transportation. There's no cost to this exhibit either. The Glenbow was committed to making this completely accessible to all Calgarians. So there's no charge to attend. The recent surveys that came out, I don't know if you've read this week about American and Canadian elementary and high school students, a very high number believe that the Holocaust is exaggerated or fabricated, that it can't possibly be as dramatic as they've been told. And so that's a very frightening statistic. It's along with many other frightening statistics that we are all aware of and familiar with. And so education, talking about it, continuing to talk about it, and making it easy for teachers to bring their students to this, we think is a really important aspect. So yeah, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. I know you.
What hours will the exhibit be open for? Do you know?
We do know. If you go to the website, heretotell.com, it's got the hours listed. But if you want, I'm going to go right now to the website myself, so I can just tell you.
Yeah.
The hours are going to be Wednesday, 12 to 5, Thursday and Friday, 12 to 7, Saturday and Sunday, 12 to 5.
Yeah.
Children going through the exhibit will be toured through the exhibit by tour guides. We've partnered with Yad Vashem, and Yad Vashem is providing training, 5 hours of training to all of our tour guides. They're also giving us we printed out one of the Yad Vashem ready to print exhibits. So in addition to everything you'll see about the survivors, in the middle of the exhibit, there'll also be a 19-panel display that was created by Yad Vashem explaining about the Shoah.
Yeah.
So it all works, it ties in. And then if COVID participates, we're hopeful that some of our survivors or the descendants will be available to talk at the exhibit, and people will be able to ask questions.
Very nice.
It's fantastic.
I was just going to say, I understand that Holocaust education is mandated in England and in some states. Have you looked at something like this for Alberta? Like,
Yes.
is anybody, yeah?
There's been a committee that's been working on this for many years, many years. And we actually, for the first time ever in the Foothills division, there's now actually a three-part course that's offered for students. So social studies 10, 20, and 30 just on Holocaust education. But it's not something, teachers still have a choice in the grade 11 curriculum what they want to teach about when they cover World War II. With that being said, I'm sure most of you are very familiar with the used to be annual Mount Royal University Holocaust Education Symposium.
Yes.
One of the benefits of COVID was we had to go virtual. And so because of that, we ended up being able to run symposium twice. So this last year, for example, we ran symposium in May of 2021 for 5,000 children. And we ran it again in November of 2021 for another 5,000 students.
Very nice.
Some of our survivors, like Anne, we actually went to Anne's house and we filmed her doing her presentation. And that's what was shown to students at Mount Royal, and we use it as well in other schools. Anne's got a presentation. Anne's being put to work. She's got a presentation coming up at Strathcona in the next few weeks. So we're still doing that. We were also able to create a number of other presentations, kind of like, I think some of you have seen the one that I do when I talk about my Bubby Frida and share her Shoah experience. And we have a number of those presentations that have been created using Shoah Foundation testimony mixed with the kids or grandkids. So for example, Sid and Bronya now have a presentation on each of them that's separate. Bennick Herman, I'm trying to think, Eva Davis. Those are some of the ones that we just finished working on in the last month, actually. So yeah, it's been busy on this end.
Well, congratulations, because when you think about it, you wonder what is the future of Holocaust education in the post-survival era. Like you think, well, it's over, they already passed, what's next? So it's really, really important to keep this going.
Yeah.
And you're doing
I was at Mount Royal a couple years ago, and it was unbelievable. There was a guest from Vancouver for that one. Yeah. And anyway, the response after to see the kids, just how it opened their eyes to the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the more you can present that, and particularly with the Zoom programs, that even more publicly, but even what you're doing with the students is terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a
and
lot.
Dahlia has also been instrumental in helping us expand, not just to speaking to students, but also speaking to corporations. On Thursday for International Holocaust Remembrance Day, Dahlia and I did a presentation for two major corporations. And one was the Canadian Energy Board. So everybody at the Canadian Energy Board got to see, they actually saw my Bubby's presentation. So we are very much exactly what you just said, Sam. Our goal is to get our survivors and their testimonies out to anyone and everyone who will listen.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone here had the chance to hear our guest speaker from Thursday night, Ben Freeman, but he did an incredible job talking about, he doesn't call it anti-Semitism, he calls it Jew hate.
And that's exactly what it is.
And he explains why it's called Jew hate and not anti-Semitism. And he explains how it started thousands of years ago and continues today. And the Holocaust is a chapter in that. And it's quite a unique way of looking at it, but it really has impacted how Dahlia and I are now teaching when we're in classrooms.
Yeah.
And so there will be a recording. If you go to the Calgary Jewish Federation website, hopefully by the end of Monday, there'll be a recording of Ben Freeman's presentation from Thursday night. And I highly recommend you watch it if you haven't had a chance to do so.
Yeah.
And that was very well done.
There was a project in the US of hologram testimonies. Is that sort of being linked to in the Canadian, education?
It's a little bit, and we actually have a Calgary connection to it. Fanny Wedrow has been made into a hologram through the Shoah Foundation. So we haven't actually seen it. But yes, she has completed the process, so now they're developing it. And it is, these are waves of the future, different ways to try to, exactly what Sam was saying, keep students learning the truth and learning and continue learning. So we'll see. Unfortunately, it's so expensive to develop. And, I think that with every kind of, there's probably pros and cons to things, different education tools, but it's one. And so it's definitely, something we'll try to use once we can gain access to it. But also this week, up until January 31st, down at the Calgary Library downtown, there is a Yad Vashem exhibit that we've set up. It's about children, Heavens Without Stars. And it's I think a 14-panel display. The library is incredibly supportive. We have a beautiful partnership with them. And so they've, so that's there for everyone to go see.
Yeah. And if you don't want to wait until May 27th to see what we're up to, Dahlia, what day are we doing the Yad Vashem tour?
February 22nd, but let me just.
It's a Sunday, I think it is, February 22nd. We're doing a very cool tour with an incredible tour, 20th, February 20th, with an incredible tour guide from Yad Vashem talking about spiritual resistance as we tour the museum. And then on March 22nd, we're going to be joined by an author by the name of Rebecca Donner, who wrote the most incredible book. It's top bestseller this year, and it's called All the Frequent Troubles of Our Days. I highly recommend it. It's the true story of her great aunt, Mildred Harnack, who was actually an American who went to school in Germany in the 1930s, was part of the German resistance movement. When war broke out, she stayed and was a spy. She was ultimately caught by the Nazis and there was a trial. She was found guilty and they were going to just put her in jail. But Hitler said, you're going to be executed. And she was executed on Hitler's direct order. So not all of this is all true stuff. And I know it sounds like I'm sharing everything with you, but I have told you nothing. It's just the tip of the iceberg of what has happened with this woman. So if you want to read that book ahead of time, it's called All the Frequent Troubles of Our Days. And that will be on March 22nd. We're running our programs through the Calgary Public Library, because we get a much bigger audience, and both Jewish and non-Jewish, and that's really important to us. And B, it's really nice because Dahlia and I are not good at the technology part. We really like having someone else do it for us.
Is the book available at the library or?
Virtually, Sam. If you want help registering, just email us, and we'll help you get set up. But it's all virtual. You get to stay at home and watch all these programs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the one other date just to note is April 24th. We're having a man named Avi Avner from Israel through Zoom, talking about the Eichmann capture. So he was a Mossad agent and he found original documents. And it's a kind of an insider story essentially about the capture. So that one should be really, really interesting. We've heard really great things about him. And then we'll have Yom HaShoah, which will be a virtual, well, I shouldn't even say because we're finalizing details, but we'll see how COVID is if we're able to do any part of it in person. We appreciate the community's patience with Marnie and I as we try to get creative on how to keep these ceremonies powerful and touching and commemorative, but also interesting to watch, because we're two of us trying to kind of come up with these ceremonies virtually. It's just not the same as in person. So we're doing our best. So
we'll give you a Yasher Koach for what you're doing already.
well, thank you.
I'm embarrassed to say that I had no idea you guys were working on this book. You guys have been keeping it a secret. I would have, had I known, I would have probably provided a picture of two sisters who were in the cattle cart. And in the cattle cart, it was so cramped that one of the sisters had a baby, maybe a 1-year-old or something. It was so cramped in the cattle cart that the baby suffocated from everybody. So the connection to Calgary, the two grandchildren of this woman here in Calgary. So that would have been the connection to these two people that were in the cattle cart that survived.
Wow.
And the one that lost the baby never had children after that.
You know what, Bruno, you have raised, I'm really glad you told us, first of all, thank you for sharing. You raised something that was actually very important to Dahlia and I, because we were very concerned about what would we do with people that we missed. And we know that that was going to happen. So even though this exhibit is going ahead May 27th, and it's got the 161 people that are in it, we're actually continuing the project so that people will be able to, when you go to the website, you'll see there's a part that says, tell us about you. We're going to, every year, we're going to continue. We're going to have a photo shoot. We're going to have whoever we missed hold the photos, if they have, of their relatives, so that as many people with the Calgary connection are included in this project.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other thing we didn't share is our project's been really well received. And people in New York, we think we're taking it to New York and all around Canada. So, and Arizona as well. So people are going to know about our little corner of the world.
But no, so Bruno, if you go to heretotell.com, there's on our website, there is a part saying, like if you want to, participate. We're never closing this. As long as Marnie and I are able to do this, we're always accepting. And once we get enough people listed who want to participate, we will book a photo shoot. So
can you repeat the email address so I can?
Yes, heretotell.com. I'll put it in the chat. Actually, I think Leonard put it in the chat. I'll put it again.
I just did, Dahlia.
Okay, you're faster.
I was born in Romania, so we were not touched that much. My grandfather had 12 children. Allegedly, he had about 18, but a lot of them were living in northern part of Romania, and I was surprised when we put our family tree together that at least 8 of them also perished in the Holocaust. That I never knew until this, maybe about 5-6 years ago, until this humongous tree. You could imagine 12 siblings that we know of, and the 12 siblings had children, and then children and children.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, incredible. It would be our honor. Let's make sure we connect, and we will get the information so we can make sure it's included. It's really important to us.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to come tonight. It was nice to be here for Havdalah as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dahlia. And thank you,
just one last question for Marnie and Dahlia. How do you think we as individuals, as a congregation, can best support Holocaust Shoah remembrance in our community in Calgary in general?
I think we just need to keep talking. We need to, having presentations, organizing educational opportunities, really reaching out to our youth and making that And just, the community being aware of what's going on. So, especially you, Leonard, as a leader of a congregation, if we can send you information and get it circulated so that, I think that's right now, I think that our biggest thing.
And for me, coming on the heels of what Ben Freeman was talking about Thursday, I've learned, be proud. Be proud of where we come from. We come from extraordinary, very ordinary and extraordinary all at the same time. And I think that's pretty powerful. And so if we can continue to share where we come from as a community and take pride in that, people will listen.
Well, in line with that, I do want to express my own pride and gratitude for my mom who's joining us. She was a child survivor from Romania. Her father, my grandfather, was killed in the Shoah. She and her mom survived in the lager. And I dare say that our entire family is incredibly proud of what she has been able to share with us, even if it was just as a child. And, when you're a child, you don't necessarily have a critical perspective on it, but
no.
She shared so much with us. Mom, do you want to share anything or say anything?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for acknowledging it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that people are continuing to tell the story, because as a child, I have certain images, certain things have remained very vivid, but a lot of the stuff I was really sheltered from by my mother, and just being so young that I was not able to understand or to remember a lot of it. And maybe my mind has blocked out a lot of things as well. But I'm glad that there are people in your age group who are able to continue and are doing so very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We take it as a big honor and a very big responsibility. Dahlia and I are very clear on where we come from.
Add one thing. I just want to say thank you to you two girls. You're doing such a wonderful thing, not only the work, but the feeling, the way you express yourself, the way you look at it. And I just want to say thank you very much. And thank you for letting us participate in this Havdalah service and hearing all this again. Thank you, girls.
And Morris, as I put in the chat, so grateful for you sharing your own experiences as part of this project. And you guys looked amazing in those photos, so you should go for that.
That goes for me too, Dahlia and Marnie. You're both doing a fantastic job. It's actually a very appropriate time. We're kind of lucky that this project is hitting now. I think COVID has brought a lot of things into focus about survival because of the disease. And I think it's just a little step. You can transpose that step to people that were faced with survival and kind of get the meaning of it in your own real time, in your own little world now, as people are sick and trying to manage the best they can when times are not as good as they were as they used to be. So I think it's almost like a perfect opportunity. And Leonard, for leaders like yourself, I think the Shoah and the Holocaust needs to be brought into almost weekly or daily conversation in terms of human survival. And as an example of the people that have survived, and as the people that have gone on and formed a state and formed an entire life, an entire country, and educated and went on despite of the horrible things that happened to them. And I think that's a message that can be brought to the pulpit almost every week from any parsha. You can draw that, and you can use the Holocaust as an example of that, as a positive example of that, and not to be ashamed of what happened to us. We fought back. We fought back. Everybody that survived fought back in their own way, one way or another. And this is a story that has been suppressed for too long. And Dahlia and Marnie, your focus on it is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm so happy that it's happening in a museum, because that's really where the culture of the entire world takes place. It's in museums, it's in concert halls, it's in synagogues and churches, but not so much anymore. So I'm glad you're doing this. You've really broadened the stage, and Yeshikoyachta, you really carry on with your work.
Amen.
All right.
You know what comes to mind just with that you might even try something at the Plaza Theater at one point.
Oh,
Where-
we have a few tricks up our sleeves. We didn't want to tell you all of our programs today
Okay.
because then we'd be here for another 2 hours. We
Oh,
got a
okay.
few tricks.
Okay.
Spectacular.
So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say one more thing. First of all, thank you both for such an informative presentation. And you did promise it's going to be interesting and fascinating, and it was absolutely. And it's great that you continue this work. And as Ben Freeman said in that article, the hate that caused it still exists today. So we have to keep on going and educating, and that's exactly what you're doing. So yasher koach, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank
We
you.
hope to see you at one of these events.
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
for sure. You're going to catch lots of us at many of them. And may you go from strength to strength in this wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you.
Shavua tov, everybody.
Shavua tov. I'll keep the
Shavua
window
tov.
open for all of us.
Shavua tov.
All right, I'll keep the window open if anyone wants to sit and talk a little bit for a couple of minutes. We'll be closing it down in a little bit. In the meantime, Shavua tov.
Shavua tov.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Mom, you want to stick around and talk for 2 minutes?
All right.
How is it with Libby tonight? I sent her a message. I'll probably call her again after we speak here.
Yeah. She'd still be up, I think, at this hour.
How was it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It was fine. I spoke to Cinema yesterday,
Okay.
hoping that, no, not yesterday, Thursday,
Right.
hoping that she would come, but I knew she wasn't. No, because of COVID, and they may have gone down to what's his name's Kevin's family house, because they've been rebuilding that car.
Oh, yes.
And now the parents are in Florida, so the garage is all to themselves.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm speak to her tomorrow. Anyway, she did text a message, I think, to Libby to just wish happy birthday, saying she can't make it, and just happy birthday.
Right.
And I think that kind of, cool
By
thing.
bit by bit, the ice is, hopefully slowly melting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I just wish Cinema would get a job and get out of her skin a little bit, out of her emotional whatever state. I think she's depressed.
Very
So,
possibly, absolutely. It's very, it's a tough.
I tried not to lecture her, but I said to her, Cinema, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm lecturing, but that's my job. As your grandmother, that's my job. I hope you don't. That you're not angry with me. No, I'll never be angry with you. So I said,
Oh,
fine.
that's good. Okay, Mom. So
That's okay. I said, but do call your mother. It's her birthday. Do wish her. And if she didn't call her, but she sent her a text. So at least, just
I saw this picture that Erica made for Libby. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's really it's based on some fantasy story that she read about a queen and in a kingdom, and her husband being half crow and half man. So maybe that's that little bird that's sitting beside this woman all dressed in black.
A sorceress kind of thing almost.
And she looks like a bit of a witchy cat because we're black and hat, but she's supposedly a queen, and she has 30-something adopted children, three children of her own. One didn't die, one died. She adopted a whole bunch of children. Those are represented in the roses of their yellow roses. It was not bad, it's really, she worked very, very hard on it for a lot of detail in the grass and in the flowers and so on. And it's quite pleasant to look at. It's a little disturbing